Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you have your coffee in hand and you're ready to sit back and learn more about how to deliver training to franchisees and dealers. My name is Katie Burke. I'm the marketing strategist at Cornerstone, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent in a follow-up email at a later date. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do so at any time using the Q&A on the right-hand portion of your screen. We'll try to answer as many as we can during the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you experience any technical issues, please message me in the Q&A box and I will assist the best I can. I'm excited to be joined by two fantastic colleagues on today's webinar. Casey Wynn is Principal Solution Consultant at Cornerstone. Casey has expertise in enablement solutions for both employees and external partners such as franchisees. Ryan Mitchell is Regional Sales Manager for Cornerstone Extended Enterprise and Cornerstone for Salesforce. Ryan has helped countless companies evaluate their education strategies for partners and clients, and he's an expert in best practices for training non-employees. Today's webinar will start with a conversation with Ryan about the importance of effectively training franchisees and a brief success story. Then we'll transition over to Casey for a demonstration of how you can deliver, track, and manage franchisee training. We'll close today's webinar with time for Q&A. So without further ado, I'll hand things off to Ryan. Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you, Katie. And good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. As Katie mentioned, this is Ryan Mitchell. I'm a Regional Sales Manager with Cornerstone. I've been with Cornerstone, as Katie mentioned, a little over 6 years. I've been in the industry for almost 12 years, and I'm part of a team at Cornerstone that focuses primarily on the Cornerstone Extended Enterprise LMS model. And from a product standpoint, that's going to be the focus of our discussion today, of the demo today. In that term, Extended Enterprise, you'll hear us talk a lot about that today. We'll use that term, Extended Enterprise. We'll also use the acronym EXE, which is Extended Enterprise. And what that is, what that model is, the Extended Enterprise model, it's essentially a marketing term that Cornerstone uses when an organization, like a franchise group, takes the traditional Cornerstone learning management system and they deploy it to an external audience. So users or people who sit outside the four walls of the organization. They do not receive a W-2 from the organization. They are external to the organization. And what we do is we layer on some additional functionality to our traditional LMS for how users can access content or acquire content. Because when you sit outside the four walls of an organization, you don't work for that organization, how you get access to training or learning experiences or how you acquire learning experiences is very different than if you sit inside the four walls of that company. The perfect example or the perfect use case would be the franchise model. And franchisors needing to reach, needing to educate, needing to train the employees of the franchisees. Essentially, it's when someone sits outside the four walls of an organization, but you, as an organization or a franchisor, want to provide a value-added service to your franchisees, potentially at a cost. And those value-added services are on your brand, your products, the company culture maybe, on the overall customer experience at the physical brick-and-mortar locations for your franchisees so that there is a consistent, high-quality experience every time and at every location. And if we think about this external audience, or this corporate ecosystem is another word that we use, or what Cornerstone calls our extended enterprise, it's very large usually. It's usually very global also. It's diverse, it's unique, it's dispersed. And when you bring all those elements together, it can be very challenging. It can be very complex to reach them, to properly educate them, to properly train them. But where there are challenges and where there are complexities, there's also opportunities and very unique opportunities. And there's a very real opportunity to reach these users, these employees, in a very efficient way, a very effective way, a very engaging way, which can have a very real impact on both the franchisee and you as the franchisor. And this is why Cornerstone has this team. This is why Cornerstone has this product, the Extended Enterprise LMS product, or the EXE product, so we can help organizations, in this case, franchisors, more efficiently, more effectively reach their external audience and help them create this high-quality customer experience every time and at every location. And if you look at the franchise industry from a macro perspective, this year, in 2017, franchises in the U.S. are once again outpacing the overall economy. The industry is expected to grow by about $36 billion this year, and this is according to the IFA, the International Franchise Association. And a simple 1 to almost 2% increase in physical establishments will provide more than 7 million jobs, which is over a 3% increase from last year in 2016. Now, all of this is great news from a macro perspective, and it's all very exciting, but as we all know, not every franchisor experiences success or experiences long-term success. There was a 12-year study that was done on about 160 different franchise organizations, and the study showed that only about 25% of franchisors survived during that period, that 12-year period. Now, that study was published back in 1998, but the stats are very similar today, if not worse. And it begs to ask, what then separates the 25% from the 3/4 who didn't make it? And creating a franchise organization with staying power, with the ability to withstand economic fluctuations and fickle customer demand, it requires more than just a beloved product or a great product or die-hard customers or even clever marketing. The real key is ensuring a consistent, a high-quality customer experience every single time. And that begins and it ends with your franchisees. They are brand ambassadors with huge skin in the game. And franchisees are invested not just in their own success, but in the success of the organization, of the franchisor itself. Yes, they put cash on the line, they purchase a working stake in your business, but franchisees don't operate in a vacuum. They bring the motivation, they bring the passion, they bring the drive, and your organization must nurture and must sustain that drive with resources and with training opportunities. And if you can provide, as I switch here, and if you can provide those resources and those training opportunities, it can have a real impact on the business, and it can help move the needle for the business. For instance, and these are some of the things we're going to talk about today through different scenarios, if you can easily and efficiently assign necessary training programs to new employees or existing employees at franchisees and their employees so that to those employees so that they are familiar with your business model, and are aware of these standard operating procedures, this is the foundation for creating a very consistent brand experience for customers. In addition to that, if you can use learning as a tool to encourage success among your top performers while also using it as a tool to support struggling franchisees, encourage your top performers to continue to grow their success through continuing education. For those underperformers, you can dynamically assign training to help them improve their business. And you'll know what training programs are most effective because you'll have the visibility in the LMS into your most popular programs, your most successful programs. And then you can recommend and assign those programs out to people, out to users, out to employees, out to franchisees. And you can do that because of data, because of reporting, because of intelligence. When you have one central database of training information, whether that's online training, in-person training, or classroom-based training, or a combination of that, you can draw conclusions or answers on which types of training are most effective and correlate to higher sales. And then you can assign those same programs to underperformers so they can start to improve their business and ultimately your business. And I'm going to move forward here. A great living example of this is our client, Metro PCS. And if you're not familiar with Metro PCS, they're one of the nation's leading providers of flat rate, unlimited wireless communication services. They operate about, I believe it's 150 company-owned stores, and then about 4,500 independent dealer locations, which are franchisees. And they had a very big problem. And we have the case study. I believe Katie's going to send it out to everyone after the call today. But they had this very large problem where they did not have an efficient or effective way to deliver relevant training programs to their sales associates. And these were both at the company-owned stores, but more importantly, the 4,500 some odd independent dealer locations. Before Cornerstone, they did have an online university, and it was designed to give sales associates access to product information, rate plans, general selling skills, et cetera, et cetera. But the LMS they were using, the tool they were using was, one, very unreliable, and two, it was very limited in how it could assign training, but also how it could recommend or suggest training, and how it could dynamically get the right training to the right people at the right time. And some of the results they saw is a big part of what's in the case study and what we'll send out to you. But within the first 5 months of using the Cornerstone LMS, and just by leveraging standard functionality, at least standard in the Cornerstone LMS, the number of courses taken by sales associates skyrocketed from just under 15,000 to more than 48,000 courses, all in a 5-month span. And the LMS helped them with, two things, profitability and productivity. Keeping sales associates trained on the latest technology and rate plans is obviously key to driving sales for all locations, whether they're company-owned or the independent dealers. But the ability to instantly push out training to the dealers also helped with profitability and productivity. All of this without disrupting the daily workflow of the store. And last, the LMS improved visibility to data and reporting. They can easily track all learning activities and the impact that learning has on sales. For instance, they can track down to the store level and the employee level how many people participated in training during a given month, and then correlate that data to each store's sales. And they send that info out to their executives so they can see on a regional basis which dealers and which stores are taking training and directly how it relates to sales. So Metro PCS is a great client, and it's been a great client since about 2011, and it's a very good use case on how a franchisee or franchisor can help their franchisees through training and education and development. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any initial questions. And while we do that, we're going to pass the ball over to Casey, and he's going to open up a live demo portal and walk us through some specific use cases for us.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It looks like we have a couple of questions coming up here that will likely be answered through the demo, so I'm going to hold off on those just until the end here.
Okay.
All right, Casey, go ahead and take it away. Casey, you on mute there?
Yep, sorry, I was on mute on WebEx and my phone. So I think the key to what Ryan was saying is really key, but the basics is there's 3 parts to a successful franchise model in terms of training. Number 1 is make it easy to use for the end users. So get them the training they need, get it to them easily. Number 2 is at the franchisee level, give them the power to manage their own users, manage their own content, manage their own branding. So let each franchisee run a subset of the LMS. And then obviously the biggest piece is at the franchisor level, at the corporate level, they have complete oversight of everything that's going on at the franchisee level and at the individual user level. So today I'll walk through those 3 personas. So the employee at the franchise location, the administrator at the franchise location, maybe it's the owner, maybe it's a manager, and then the administrator at the corporate level. So I'm logged in here as an employee of Primerica. They make their own pizza where you can go and design your own pizza. So the user logs in. What they see and what they have access to is very, very configurable. So every user, every franchise, every employee might have a different level of access. They might see different branding. Who gets to control that is completely up to you. But it's really driven for this specific user. So based on who I am, based on where I work, which franchise location I work for, this is the branding and content that I see available to me. And I can come in here and there's a couple things important things I can do. So I can manage my own profile if I want to specify the topics I'm interested in or my job role, career profile, things like that. But then I can also see the training that's been assigned to me. So this could have come from corporate. This could have come from the owner at my franchise location. It could have been something I self-enrolled in. But this is my current transcript of the training I'm either taking or have to take. So very easy for them to find here. They also always have access to their completed transcript. So we track the user's training across the user record. So if they ever move between locations, we still track that completion record for that user. And they can see, based on the training that they've taken, they have access to badges. So if they want to gamify it, they can rate the training. So that Amazon model of rating and reviewing the training, and then recommending additional training. So again, the goal is to get people the right training based on who they are and what they're doing. So we drive that in a few different places. This is just one example of that. And can everybody see my screen moving? Are you seeing a completion page right now?
Yep, we're good.
Yes, I'm seeing it, Casey.
I had a comment come through that it was frozen. So again, getting people the right training when and where they need it. Now, I can also search for training. So you can push training to the user. The system can do it dynamically. The administrators can do it. But the user can also search for training that they're interested in. And you can see, again, we're trying to get them and drive them towards what they want to be looking for. So we have some top picks. We have some picks based on the subjects that this user is interested in. We have some suggested training. A lot of this is driven by the system, but it can be managed by either the corporate level or the individual franchisee level. So getting people the right training can really be determined at either level. And then they can come in here and search across the entire system. So if they're searching for training at the executive level, within a couple clicks, they can narrow it down to exactly what they're looking for, and they can enroll in the training right here. The training that they're able to find, the pricing that they see, so if you do want to have franchises purchase training, you can set that up as well. But the training results that they see, the pricing they see, the details they see are, again, all determined by who this user is. So one franchisee might be able to see this training where another doesn't. One user might be able to see this training where another doesn't. That's very configurable based on who the user is. And the last thing is the calendar. So the user can search the calendar from the calendar view to see trainings coming up in their location near them based on topics that they're interested in. So it's the same results we showed before when they're browsing for training, but now just in a different view, the traditional calendar view, where they can search for that training. So that's essentially, obviously there's a lot of configuration here and there's a lot of content here, but that's essentially how it works for the end user. They can see the training they've been assigned, which can be, again, by the administrator or their manager or dynamically from the system. They can search the catalog for training they want to enroll in, and they can view all of those same results in the calendar view here. So in addition to the learning, we have the concept of what we call Connect, which is a social networking tool, but it can be tied to the training going along with it. So if you're bringing a new franchisee on board and you want all of their employees to be walking through the same training at the same time with some collaboration tools along with it, you can create a cohort in what we call Connect, and it can be all the people talking about the same topics while taking training at the same time. So I think the onboarding of a new franchisee location is a perfect example, but it might be if all of your franchise owners are in a cohort together. You can group these people together based on those rules of who they are and then make that training available to that group of people. So that's essentially it from the end user perspective. Again, if you do want to charge for training, we also have the shopping cart functionality available. You can charge at the franchisee level or the individual level. But just getting people into the system, putting the training that they need right in front of them, and letting them access the training and complete the training. If we switch users now and we'll log in as another employee of another franchise location. So this is still the employee level. You can see this franchise location has different branding available, different homepage, different functionality. So this user can actually manage their goals, walk through their career succession plan. So there's a lot more functionality available. Again, you can do that at the user or the franchisee level. So not every franchisee needs to have the same functionality or the same content or the same permissions. You can very much configure that to be different amongst your entire population. And especially when we talk about internal employees at corporate, they can obviously have a very different set of functionality and content available to them. So now if we switch over to the administrator at the franchise location, so again, this might be the owner, it might be some sort of manager. If I can remember my password. So when this user logs in, you can see they also have the ability to take training, so very similar to the end user. They're still an employee of the franchise, so they can still log in and take training. They can still manage their profile, but now you can see there's some administrative functionality for them as well. So they're being notified of things from corporate, whether it's new training that they need to push out to their employees or new training that they need to take themselves. They can be notified of that there. But then they can also come in here and administer their own users, set up their own UI, their own catalog of content. So corporate might have pushed down a catalog of content, but each franchisee might be able to add on to that and upload their own content that's relevant to their specific location. And then the dashboard of their employees. So they can track the training that their employees have taken, and they can push training out to those users as well. So if this person comes in, they're not only able to see themselves from a profile perspective, they're able to track all of their employees as well. So they can make sure that Gina has taken her training, they can push training out to that subset of users. So giving them that limited administrative access where they can manage content and users without giving them access to the other franchise locations. So they're really just able to manage their subset of users and content. So Katie, I know you said you had some questions come in. Did anything I say, were any of the questions related to anything I just said across the end user perspective before we look at the administrator?
Yeah, so we had one question come in that says, we do most of our training via webinars. How are you able to track those types of trainings within Cornerstone? I don't know if you're going to show that next, but.
Yeah, so we have the events management as well. So you can create classroom training or virtual classroom training. It can have a physical location or a virtual location using things like WebEx or GoToTraining. So you can set those up. Again, whether you want corporate or the franchisee to set them up, completely up to you. But then those will show up in the calendar as well. So any classroom or virtual classroom trainings that I'm able to physically or virtually attend will show up here, and I'll be able to enroll in that event just like I'm able to enroll in any e-learning or certifications or things like that.
Awesome, thank you. We did have one other question that came in. It said many of our franchisees do not have access to a computer. Do you support mobile learning, and if so, what types of devices?
Yeah, so everything we do is mobile ready from a functionality standpoint. The content itself needs to be mobile compatible, so that would be up to whoever's creating the content. But it's available on any device, so tablets, phones, computers, obviously, through either our mobile app, which we have for iPhone and Android, or through the mobile browser. So it's definitely available through all of those different devices.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's all we have for now.
All right, so again, letting the user or letting each franchise sub-manage their users and content and branding and things like that. But then if we log in as the corporate administrator, this is where there's a lot more functionality. So you can set up the profiles of your different franchisees. You can set up the different permissions that each of them have, so whether they can manage their own content or whether you want to manage it at the corporate level. So this is literally where you manage everything from users to UI to content. So here you'll have the overarching view of what all of your franchisees are doing all in one place. So the quickest way to see that is through what we call the Learning Admin Console. And here you can see what training, what the timeline of training is, so when are your peaks, when are your valleys, how many people are enrolling in training, what the most popular trainings are, the most highest rated. So just a high-level view of the training that's going on in the organization. But then you can build specific reports that'll tell a more specific story to your use case. So whether you want a report that shows how many franchisees have people out of compliance, or which franchise has taken the most training, you can build a custom report that then starts to pull in all of those custom fields that you care about. So just an example, if you want to see which content is bringing in the most revenue for the organization, you can start to add the custom fields that you care about, and you can see there are a bunch of them. So literally every field across our system is reportable. But then you can build the report, pull in the fields you want to see, and then add any report or dashboard on top of it. So if we look at some of those dashboards, you'll be able to see for example, this left one, top left, shows do the different franchisees have different performance based on the training they're taking. So the good thing about Cornerstone is we have open APIs that can communicate with any sort of CRM system. So you can actually track or bring in from that system the revenue that these different franchisees have brought in, and now you can correlate it to training. So this actually shows, do the people who take more training hours actually bring in more revenue? The right one shows which training modules are most popular across the different franchisees. So what's actually being enrolled in, what's being completed, what's not being completed, and then you can see which franchisees are actually in compliance. And hopefully your chart doesn't actually look like this, where 90% are out of compliance, but you'll be able to very quickly see who needs to take training now, and then you can notify them or push training out based on what they're taking or not taking. So I think that's the three stories. The end user, again, making sure it's easy to use, making sure it's branded for that specific user. At the franchisee level, making sure that they can manage their own subset of users, their own subset of content, and then report against all of that. And then at the corporate level, making sure they have the top-down view of everything going on beneath them with complete permissions to determine who can do what and who can see what beneath them.
Fantastic.
So any questions?
Thanks, Casey. It looks like we've had a couple questions come through that I'll go ahead and jump to. The first question we have, Ryan, this might be a question for you. Do you offer franchise-specific content?
Yes, that's actually a very good question. And content is obviously very important in any good learning strategy. We like to say that content is the king of a learning strategy, but the LMS is the throne that the king or the content sits in. So you need to have content to have a good learning strategy. And as an organization, Cornerstone's philosophy when it comes to content is to always be content agnostic, meaning that we're not going to tell you to only use our content, or you have to use this vendor's content, or you have to use this format. We essentially accept all different types of formats when it comes to content. Now, we don't create or author content. We're not like a Skillsoft, but we do have partnerships with Skillsoft. And we are a curator of content as well. So we have collected 2,000 or close to 2,000 pieces of content that you can use to supplement your current content strategy for your franchisees. To turn into a short answer, we absolutely can help you with a content strategy. We have a content strategy team internally at Cornerstone that can help an organization build out and purchase off-the-shelf content, either from Cornerstone or from one of our partners, to supplement or complement your current content strategy that you have for your franchisees. So kind of a long-winded question there, but we absolutely can help with the content strategy through our curated content and our partnerships.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Casey, question for you. Can I change the content that each of my franchisees can see based on how long they've been with us? We have a very specific curriculum that our new franchisees go through.
Yeah, so the system, there's really two ways the users can get training. It's either through the catalog where they can search for training and enroll in training, or it can be assigned by the system. But both of those can have rules in place where the training is only available to them during their first year of franchisee partnership. The system can also dynamically assign them training based on some rules you put in place. So as soon as a new franchisee comes on board, it might dynamically push them out some training. So the onboarding plan or anything like that can be dynamically pushed to them. So you don't always have to manually push that training out. You can set up the rules one time, and the system would handle it from then on.
Fantastic, thank you. The next question here is, it says, we sometimes charge franchisees for advanced training. Is it possible to train for profit with Cornerstone?
Yes, so you can definitely put a cost to anything, and it can be actual currency where people have to check out with a credit card. It can be virtual currency through what we call training units. So maybe each franchise location gets a set of training units that they can spend virtually, and then after that they have to purchase with a credit card, or we can even support checks or purchase orders that you need to collect offline and then approve online. So you can definitely charge for training. That's a very common use case that we see across our customers.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like that was the last question that we have at the moment. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to have this discussion with us, and we will be following up with everyone via email with a link to the recording, so you're welcome to revisit what we discussed today at any time. We'll hang out here in case there are any last-minute questions, but thank you all and have a wonderful day.